Yo, what up guys? So I thought I'd make a quick video showing my Battlefield 5 settings, because I've been getting asked this a fair bit in my Twitch streams lately. There's obviously been a lot of new players coming to the game recently, with it being 95% off on the recent Steam sale. And full disclaimer before I get into showing my settings, you shouldn't just copy every single setting that I have. Most of the settings I have are a good baseline, but in terms of things like sensitivity, it's totally personal preference and there is no quote unquote best sensitivity. With that said, let's get into it. I'll try to leave timestamps down below so you can skip through the different sections, but we'll start off with controls. I have invert vertical look turned off. I obviously use mouse and keyboard. So my mouse and sensitivity is 6.6% and I use 800 DPI. So you obviously need your DPI and in-game sense to get your true sensitivity. Stick aim doesn't matter as I don't play controller. Zoom aim sensitivity I have this set to 100%. Soldier sprints on hold. Double tap forward to sprint and slide, I have these both turned off. I'm not sure why you would use these, as you just have to click the key twice instead of once, which is just slower. Soldier weapon zoom and steady scope I have on hold. And request, skip, revive and soldier leaning, I have both of these on toggle. Again, mouse aim, it's totally personal preference. I have mine on 4% for vehicles. Vehicle stick aim sensitivity, this is pretty important though. I'd recommend setting this to 100%, as this can affect like your vehicle turning speed. I had a glitch recently where or basically every vehicle in the game that had wheels wouldn't turn fully for me, so changing this to 100% fixed that for me. Vehicle weapon zoom on toggle, that's pretty handy, and invert vertical flight I have on. That's just what I'm used to with planes and stuff. Uniform soldier aiming, I've actually recently turned this setting on and I've actually liked it a lot, so I'd recommend trying this if you haven't already. And I put the coefficient to 0%, that seems to be the best setting. If you don't know what this does, in short, it basically tries to align your hipfire aim sensitivity with your scope sense. So it is pretty handy. I turned the uniform vehicle aiming on as well, but it's really not that important. And I have the coefficient just as default. It doesn't really matter too much on vehicles, as it does on infantry. Vehicle controls, I have all these four turned on. The one I'd recommend and pretty useful is the decouple pilot free look. It basically allows you to free look while also controlling the plane. So when you have this off, you basically can't do this. So it's really useful for dogfighting and things. My zoom in sensitivities are all on default. These are all set to 100. It's best to keep these all default if you're using the uniform soldier aiming. But if you like setting these to your custom ones, you don't really need to use the uniform soldier aiming. Like if you have specific settings that you like to use on the zoom sense. Vehicle sensitivity, this is a really important one, plane control sensitivity. A lot of people always ask me, how do you turn so fast in planes? If you're having the issue where you're turning really slow, set this to 150%. This will allow you to turn at the max possible speed in game. It's really useful, especially for dogfighting, but just general plane gameplay. I think I have all these on default 100%. And don't touch any of these vertical mouse aim ratio. I have these all on default. I wouldn't mess with any of them. Controller tuning, again, I don't use controller, but raw mouse input, I make sure this is turned on. I just always turn off vibration in controllers because that's annoying, but I'll not go over any of these. These are all just default. I haven't touched any of them. So on the gameplay, basic settings, I have HUD turned on, HUD motion turned off. That's nice because that's just annoying if your HUD's moving about while you're playing. player created content I have on show. Chat log when active. You can change this to whatever you want. If you don't care about game chat and it's distracting, you can just hide it. But I like seeing people get mad or accusing me in game, so I have it on active. Magnified chats off. Inventory I have when active. It's not really that important. I would either have it on show or when active though, because it is useful to know which weapons or equipment you have. Kill log, definitely have that on show. Kill log filter have on all. I haven't really messed with this too much. You can maybe try nearby. It'd be good if you're running infantry. I'd recommend putting it on all if you're in vehicles especially. It just gives you more information on who your teammates are killing or who the enemy's killing on your team. And sometimes you can play off that info. Kill log weapon, I have on name. It's not really that important. The icon or aim, I used to use icon, but name, it's just easier to read the name of the weapon rather than trying to figure out what the icon is. Score log weapon off, awards show, vehicle seed info on, critical messages on. I've shared usage data off, don't want EA stealing my info. Overlay shadow strength, I think that's just default on 40%. Have loadout mirroring on as well. Again, stuff like crosshairs, personal preference. I change these settings all the time, mainly just like my crosshair color. You can choose whatever you like. At the minute I'm rocking green. I would recommend putting crosshair visibility on 100% though, it just makes it easier to see. And the reflex or night hour glow, that's on default at 100 as well. I don't really mess with that too much. Hit indicators, again, you can just choose whatever colors you want. I mess with the headshot color sometimes just to switch it up when I get bored. Minimap, I've on 100% texture opacity. Rotate with view, it's kind of personal preference, but I think rotate with view is just better, so I have it on. It's what I'm used to in other games. Flight zoom radius, I have this on max, and same with vehicle zoom radius, just because when you're in planes you want to be able to kind of see as much of the map as possible. It's just helpful. On foot zoom radius, I have that set to 65. You can change this in game anyway. I think my keybind for it is N, and it allows you to change between, I think it's like 65, like 100, 200, whatever it is. I have my minimap size on 140. I used to honestly play with this maxed out at 150, but it's kind of like a really big, too big. You kind of want a really big minimap so that you can see as much info as possible, but not too big that it's distracting. So I find this is kind of like a nice balance. Default icon opacity, I've actually recently changed these. As it used to be really annoying, like whenever you're trying to shoot people and the objective icons are basically like obstructing your view. And it can honestly like be the difference maker between whether you kill someone or not. So I'd recommend turning these down a lot. Like the objective icons are huge and like really bright. And obviously once you play like the maps a lot, you know where the objectives are. Like you don't need the game to tell you. You can copy mine if you want, but I still sometimes play around with these a little bit. But I just recommend turning down the objective icon opacity a bit at least. But you want to make sure that enemy soldiers, their icons are on 100%, because you obviously want to be able to spot enemies a lot faster than friendlies or objective icons. And for the ADS icon, I actually turn most of these off. So obviously most of the time when you're ADSing, like you're either in a gunfight or looking to kill someone, so you don't want a lot of clutter on your screen. So I've turned the icon opacities completely off, and then I turned down the friendly soldier to 35%, but I keep the enemy soldiers again on the highest 100% because I want to be able to spot them um, as much as possible. And gadget and danger ping, I have those off. You could maybe put on danger ping like a little bit, but I just like it having off. And we'll come into advanced. Okay, this is pretty important. I'd recommend turning this down to the lowest possible setting, which is 50%. If you have this on default, I think it's maybe not 100%. I think it's on like 70 or something as default, but it's really annoying. It's kind of like the same vibes as playing with like vibration on controller. It's just, you don't want it. Soldier auto laning, turn this off. The game will auto lane for you, and it's really annoying. It can off put your shots a lot of the time. Auto peek over, I have this on. This is actually handy sometimes whenever you're like trying to head glitch like some surfaces. Like it just makes it easier. But you can play with it on or off, but I'd recommend on. Parachute auto deploy off. Contacts based order giving on. Plane chase camera roll. I have this turned off. So this is another one I get on my like TikTok videos a lot. It's like how do you make planes look the way they are? As default, this is turned on, and it basically like your camera moves with the rotation of your plane. But when I play with this on, like I don't like using planes because it basically like tilts like your screen a bit. It doesn't tilt your screen, but it tilts your gameplay a lot, and it kind of makes me a little bit dizzy, so I turn this off. Character lighting, I have this turned on. This helps you be able to see character models a bit better, even though the visibility in this game is horrendous. Probably the worst game I've ever had. Like most of the time I'm squinting to see people, especially if they're hiding in like vegetation or bushes. I think all of these are default, so this is aim assist for a controller, but I guess you want your aimbot turned up max, so I'd put these on 100. Reload hit, I have this on show, so it comes up when you need to reload. It's helpful sometimes. And hit system, I have this on hide. You don't really need that. I have network performance stats hide. I don't really care to check this stuff while I'm in games. I kind of like my screen looking clean. I don't really want this clutter. Again, that's if I was playing like a competitive game or something, I might care more about this. But aim lead indicator I have on show. Okay, so we'll get into audio now. Again, most of this stuff is just personal preference and what works for whatever headset or hardware you use. My master volume is just on 16. Music volume, I just turn this completely off because I like playing music on stream, and the in-game music's just terrible. Sound preset, I have on 3D headphones. I used to play on night mode, I think. Obviously, because Battlefield can be really hectic. If you're getting shot up by vehicles, explosives, etc., it can kind of be annoying sometimes to listen to. So that's why I had on night mode, but I changed the 3D headphones, and I think it's a bit better for like awareness on trying to hear like footsteps. But I'd recommend, if you have a headset, to try 3D headphones, night mode or headphones. I'd recommend those three. I wouldn't use speakers or war tapes. Audio and background I have off. Hit indicator audio just on default. In-game announcer on. VoIP on. Push to talk. Voice volume reduction on. Subtitles on. Text size normal. It's not really relevant. We'll get into the video settings now. So I play on full screen. If you play on Windows, you're just gonna, I think it affects your FPS slightly or the input delay, so I'd recommend running full screen. Obviously my monitor's native res 1920 by 1080 and 144 Hz refresh rate, so that's what I have it set to. Make sure this is maxed out at whatever your highest refresh rate is of your monitor. Brightness, I just run the default, I think, which is 50. This game is like already bright enough for me. If I turn it up anymore, I just get blinded. I run FOV on 95 currently. This is something that I change from now and again. When I first started playing this game, I ran on 85 or so, and then I kind of bumped it up to 95. I have tried running max FOV, but there's just like too much going on my screen, especially when I'm playing for like long hours. I don't like having that much. It kind of like messes my eyes a bit. So I run 95. And this actually is your vertical FOV. If you look here over on the right, it shows your horizontal. So I'm actually on horizontal FOV 111. ADS FOV, I have this turned on. So this is a pretty important setting. If you have this turned off, you're going to get a lot more visual recoil on your guns. So I'd recommend turning this on. Motion blur, obviously, we don't like motion blur here, so turn that off, get it on 0. ADS, DOF effects, have that off. Custom color settings, so this is something that you can change. You can set it to custom and choose each individual color that you want. But I just kind of like playing on Tritanopia. I'm not colorblind or anything, I just like these colors. I used to play with it just on default or off for ages. Again, just personal preference, unless you're actually colorblind. You can just choose a setting that works for you. Turn all of these off. You don't need any of these. These are just probably going to give you less FPS and aren't good. DX12, I have this turned off. DX12 in this game is terrible. I've tested it. I have a really good PC. I have a 4070 Ti Super. When I turn this on, it makes my game stutter like crazy. And I get FPS drops like literally every few seconds. Make sure this is turned off. High dynamic range off, resolution scale on 100, frame rate limiter. The highest you can set this to is 200 in game, unless you go into the config file, but I haven't done that. I'd recommend you either setting it to monitor refresh rate, but I like setting it to 200 so I can see more, because my refresh rate is capped at 144. If you want to check your FPS in game, if you actually open up the console, and the command is perf overlay dot draw FPS, and then just type 1 and that turns it on, and in the top right hand corner then you can see your FPS. But I think every time you restart the game it disables unless you put it in the config file. Make sure you turn future frame rendering on. This will give you some extra FPS, and the input delay that it says is kind of not noticeable. Make sure VSync's turned off, that's pretty important. UI upscaling, that's on auto. GPU memory restriction, make sure that's turned off as well. Quality settings, I have my HUD on 50%, and all of my quality settings are on low or turned off. This just helps you get the most FPS, and the game still looks good even on low settings, so I don't mind it. And last of all, key bindings. So a lot of this stuff will be on default. The main tab that I will change will be pilot, but we'll get to that in a second. I have my push to talk on left alt, that's the keybind, the VoIP. If you want to bind that, I think everything else is default. Soldier, I'll just scroll down through this quickly. You guys can pause the video if you want to copy any of it. Most of it's on default. I might have changed the interact key. I'm not sure if it's F by default. I changed that to E, and then I have throw grenade on F. I think I changed that. That just works better for me because I don't like pressing G on my keyboard. It's just easier for F. So that's my soldier. Vehicle driver, I think all of this should be default. I don't think I've messed with any of this. Transport driver is the same. That should all be default. So pilot, throttle up, W, throttle down, S, that's default. Same with yaw right and yaw left, it's on DNA. Pitch up, I've bound this to space, and pitch down, I've bound this to left control. So that's really helpful for whenever you're trying to do loops in planes. You can just hold the one key and it'll constantly loop instead of having to constantly readjust your mouse, or most of the time you'd run out of mouse pad space. Roll right and roll left, that's just on the mouse movement. Look up, so I've actually changed this recently. I've put this on mouse 4, and this is because I run the decouple pilot free look. So basically it means when I'm in the cab, I press mouse 4, it'll just look straight up, and this is helpful for whenever you're trying to follow people dogfighting. And then I bound look right and look left, T and Q respectively. And then I have free look or rear view on left shift. I basically just use this for rear view camera whenever you're flying. It's really helpful to spot if somebody's on your 6 in a dogfight, or if you're trying to look for where AA shots are coming from whenever you're flying away. Danger pings on Q default. Exit vehicle, I've set that to P so I don't accidentally click on it or jump out of the plane when I'm flying. Yeah, I think the rest of this stuff should be default. Chase camera I have on C, can't remember whether that's default or not. Fire is just on left click and zoom on right click, fairly standard. Self repair is on X. And yeah, I think that's about it. All these other things should be on default. I don't think I've messed with any of them. But again, you can pause the video if you want. So yeah, that wraps up all the settings I have. So I appreciate you guys watching. Comment down below if you have anything to add, or if you want me to make similar videos to this, or want me to go over some other tutorials. Appreciate you guys watching. See ya.